when it comes to quitting drugs, whether it's weed, nicotine, alcohol, gambling, adult media content, quitting the drug actually has very little, if not nothing, to do with quitting drugs at all. And most people are always focused on, how do I quit smoking weed? How do I quit vaping? How do I stop using nicotine? And I would argue that in most cases, like myself, people are asking the wrong question. When it comes to quitting a drug, your options are pretty straightforward. Either, if you can, you're stopping cold turkey, so you're just going to stop using the drug. You're weaning off slowly and moderating your usage until you stop. Or if it's a case of like severe alcoholism or Xanax or other drugs like that, you're going through a medical detox. Maybe you go to a rehab or some program and you stop. But at the end of the day, like, there's no mystery behind getting someone to stop using drugs and getting drugs out of that person's system, right? How do you quit using drugs? You stop using drugs and you let them get out of your system. However you go about doing that safely is really up to you. That's no mystery. The hardest thing about quitting drugs, and I think the question that people should be asking is, how do I cope with anxiety? How do I manage my work stress? How do I manage my family life? How do I deal with the highs that I get, that job raise, that rush that I got off of booking that new client or that new business deal, or that celebration that I have coming up? How do I deal with the lows when we lose a loved one, when we're, suffering a loss? That could be a job loss. That could be a loss of numerous things in life, right? It could be anything. I think that's really the question that people have to be asking, because that's what makes quitting drugs difficult for people. The real question isn't, how do I quit using drugs? How do I quit smoking? How do I quit vaping? It's, how do I manage my life and all the different emotions that a person experiences day to day without the use of a substance? And this is where I think sometimes people will find some difficulty in their sobriety and becoming recovered from substance use. And very rarely is this the question that people are asking. We're so focused on, should I take this medication for it or that medication? Should I do a 12-step program? Should I go to a rehab? Should I book a phone call with Dr. Frank? Or should I buy his supplements that help me quit? We sell supplements, by the way, guys, that help people quit. It's a chewing gum product, nicotine-free, cannabis-free, stimulant-free. You can find that right below on YouTube Shopping, or the links in the pinned comment. Check that out. Kick it, crave less chewing gum. But really, that's not the right question to be asking, okay? How are you going to manage your emotions on any given day, depending on the different circumstances that you face? And I actually have an answer to that question. It's not too hard to answer. The answer is, you stop using the substance, however you so choose to do that safely. Quitting cold turkey, working with a professional on it. Maybe you do use a medication-assisted quit or go through a medical detox. Whatever it is you got to do, you do. And then you just start taking life as it comes your way, and you practice going through each of those experiences without the substance. There was probably a point in your life where you were able to experience a celebration without getting drunk or without getting high. There was probably a point in your life where you were able to experience a sad moment in your life without getting drunk or without getting high. There was probably a moment where you were able to sit there and work without being stoned or without drinking, without being under the influence. It's literally just a matter of exposing yourself or being exposed to those scenarios as life presents them to you, and just not consuming the substance. And if you do that again and again and again for 6 months, a year, 2 years, 7 years, 9+ years like I have after quitting this stuff, eventually your brain figures out alternative pathways, alternative ways to cope, which I hate referring to any substance as a coping mechanism, because then we're giving that drug the benefit of it helping you cope. And in most cases, that benefit's not actually there for people. But for lack of better terminology, I'll stick with that for today's video. It's exposure to these scenarios on a repetitive basis, not reaching for the substance, and letting your brain figure out what it's going to do alternatively. And there isn't a cookie cutter answer for this, right? I might talk to one person and the answer might be cold showers and deep breathing. I might not talk to another person and they might find their answer in a faith-based approach. I might talk to someone else and it might be found in a community approach or working and coping through work and coping through ways like that. Everyone is different. Everyone's preferences are different. Everyone's brains are wired differently. Your life in your upcoming was very probably different from my life and my upcoming. So how we manage things going forward is just going to look different. And this is the problem then. People are, one, focused on how do I quit using drugs? How do I stop using drugs? I told you have 3 options. Quit cold turkey, wean off slowly, go to medical detox. That's it. You stop eventually. That's it. How do I cope with life then without drugs? How do I get used to being alive sober? We got to figure it out. That there's not a cookie, like what works for me may or may not work for you. So there's not like this end all be all answer. There's not some blueprint for this because no one has the blueprint on how to live a perfect life, right? Some aspects of people's lives might be perfect or might appear to be perfect, given the vibe that they catch online. But like, no one has that. And that's why there's not quote unquote, well, there is a cure to addiction. Stop using the drug, right? Stop using the drug. Don't pick up the drug again. Now you're not suffering from addiction and the consequences of addiction anymore. People come in here and say, yes, you are. I crave it every day. Well, I don't know what to tell you then. That wasn't my experience. And there's a lot of people who don't live that experience. So addiction can be cured, but like, how do you live life? How do you do that? And I think it's just a matter of we're all trying to figure that out in our own way, shape, or form. So I hope this helps. If you enjoyed this conversation and it made you think about things a little differently, why don't you check out the pinned comment and the links in the pinned comment? I have a $27 a month program hosted on school.com where we have conversations just like this live on Zoom, and I work with people privately inside the DMs and stuff like that in there. And then we have our products, our Kick It Crave Less chewing gum and deep breathing necklace. Maybe that's a way to cope, right? Deep breathing and chewing gum in the beginning. And you can learn about all that in the video links and descriptions. Until next time.